Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and welcome back to this next video. And this is yet another video in the series of videos on the human digestive system. And in this video I want to focus on the small intestine and its function in the process of the digestion. Now the small intestine is a long, narrow and folded tube that extend from the stomach to the large intestine. As you can see over here, it starts here from the stomach and it moves all the way along towards the large intestine. Now the small intestine is the region of the digestive tract where most of the digestion and the absorption of the food take place. When you talk about the length of the small intestine, it is about 6.7 to 7.6 meters, like 22 to 25 feet. So it is a very long tube, and if you want to accommodate this long tube into the human body, you have to fold it. Therefore the small intestine is a highly convoluted, a highly folded tube that is contained in the central and the lower abdominal cavity. Now to support this very lengthy structure, there is a thin membranous material which is called as the mesentery. So it's the mesentery support and it somewhat suspend the intestines. Now the mesentery contain area of the fat that help retain the heat in the organ. That heat is actually required for the process of the digestion in the human body, as well as there is an extensive web of the blood vessel in the mesentery, and the function of this extensive web of the blood vessel is to help in the absorption of the food. Now nerves lead to the small intestine from two divisions of the autonomic nervous system. One, the parasympathetic nerves, which are responsible for initiation of the muscular contraction, and this muscular contraction actually move the food along the tract. And the second one is the sympathetic nerve system, which actually suppress the intestinal movements. So these two parts of the two divisions of the autonomic nervous system, they actually help in the contraction and relaxation of the muscular structure of the small intestine. Now the small intestine is usually divided into three successive regions. One is known as the duodenum, the other one is known as the jejunum, and the third one that is known as the ileum. So the first part is actually known as the duodenum, that is followed by the jejunum, and the third and the last part of the small intestine that is called is the ileum. Now we usually divide the small intestine into these three regions just for the sake of understanding, but in the reality this is actually a continuous tube, and there is no such division like the duodenum, the jejunum or the ileum in the human body. Just for the sake of the understanding, we are divided these into these three subparts. Now, although each area exhibits certain characteristic differences, there is no distantly marked separation of the small intestine. Now the first part of the small intestine, the duodenum, it is actually adjacent to the stomach. As you can see over here, it is very much adjacent to the stomach, and it is the smallest region of the small intestine, about 23 to 28 centimeter or like 9 to 11 inches long, and it has the widest diameter. Now the duodenum is not supported by the mesentery. It has the widest diameter because ducts from the liver, the gallbladder and the pancreas, they enter the duodenum, and the function of these ducts is to provide juices that neutralize the acid coming from the stomach. As you can see over here, the duodenum is in direct connection with the stomach. There is stomach, the HCl in the stomach. So if the acid it is coming directly to the duodenum, that can actually damage the area of the duodenum. So to prevent that, the ducts from the liver, the gallbladder and the pancreas, they are actually releasing juices, and the function of those juices is to neutralize the acid coming from the stomach. And as these juices contain enzymes, so those enzymes help in the digestion of the proteins, the carbohydrate and the fats. The second region of the small intestine, the jejunum, it is actually the largest of the three, and it is actually in the central section of the abdomen. As you can see over here, the one you can see in the middle is known as the jejunum. It comprises about 2/5 of the remaining tract of the small intestine. Now, if you talk about the color of the jejunum, it is very deep red because there is an extensive blood supply, and the peristaltic movements are very rapid and vigorous in the jejunum, and there is a little fat in the mesentery that support this particular region. So most of the digestion and the process of the absorption that is actually taking place in this jejunum, because it is a very long structure, or it is occupying a very long part of the small intestine. Now the last part of the small intestine, that is known as the ileum, and it is located in the lower abdomen. As you can see over here, the last part of the small intestine, this is the ileum. Now its walls are narrow and thinner than in the duodenum and in the jejunum. The blood supply is more limited. The reason is very obvious, because most of the absorption that has taken place in the jejunum, very little is remain after the food passes from the jejunum. So the limited blood supply is there to the ileum, and the peristaltic movement, they are much slower, and the mesentery has more fat in the area of the ileum. Now there is a mucous membrane when you talk about the structure of the small intestine. So there is a mucous membrane that line the intestinal walls of the small intestine. Now these intestinal walls of the small intestine, they are thrown into transverse folds which are known as the plexi circularis. As you can see over here, this is the mucous membrane of the small intestine. So what happens is that during this particular process, the plexi circularis, they are thrown into these folds. So the mucus is thrown into these plexi circularis. Now what happens is that in higher vertebrates, minute finger-like projections, which are known as the Vely, they also project into the cavity. If you can see over here, this is the mucous membrane that is thrown into the plexi circularis. Now the plexi circularis, if this one is the plexi circularis, and if you enlarge this, you can see these further projections from the plexi circularis, and they are known as the Vely. Now the function of these projections, that is to increase the surface area as well as help, and with the surface area that is increased, that actually helps in the process of the digestion as well as in the process of the absorption. Now these structures, as I've told you, that greatly increase the area of the secreting and the absorbing surfaces. Now there are certain glands present in the small intestine, small microscopic glands. For example, one of the important gland is the Brunner gland, which is actually present in the submucosa of the duodenum. And the function of the Brunner gland is principally to protect the intestinal wall from the gastric juices. There is another important gland which is known as the Lieberhorn glands, and it occupies the mucous membrane of the small intestine. And this particular gland actually secretes digestive enzymes, and the function of these digestive enzymes is to digest the component of the food in your body. They also provide outlet ports for the Brunner glands, and they also produce cells that replace surface membrane cells shed from the tips of the villi. We've already seen this. Now, when you talk about the peristaltic movement of the small intestine, now what happens is that the peristaltic waves move material undergoing digestion through the small intestine, while churning movements called rhythmic segmentation, they mechanically break up these materials, mix them thoroughly with the digestive enzymes from the pancreas, liver and intestinal wall, and bring them in contact with the absorbing surfaces. When you talk about the structure of the small intestine, you have got these circular muscles over here. As you can see over here, these one shown in the purple color, they are the circular muscles. Then you have got these longitudinal muscles shown in this this particular light color. So what happens is that when the food bolus that enter into the small intestine, the circular muscles they contract in this particular position, and when they contract, they are going to push the bolus in the forward direction. In the second stage, what happens is that the longitudinal muscles, they are going to contract, and when they contract, they are going to shorten the small intestine. And the contraction and relaxation of the circular as well as the longitudinal muscles, they are pushing the bolus in the forward direction. This is one thing. The second important thing is that when you are going to for the contraction and relaxation of these muscles, which is actually called is the rhythmic segmentations. This rhythmic segmentation and these churning movements, they also help in the mixing of the enzymes that come from the liver, the pancreas, and the intestinal walls, and they are mixed with the food. These enzymes, they are thoroughly mixed with the food, so that each and every food particle that come in contact with the enzymes, and they get digested. And when they get digested, they are also they then come in contact with the absorbing surfaces to be absorbed in the body for used for normal physiological functions of the body. Now we'll talk about the secretin and the cholecystokinin in the next video. So if you like the video, please subscribe to my channel, hit the like button and share it with your friends.